Our final story, guys, Piers Morgan flips. So believe it or not, I think it has been quite some time since we've heard Piers Morgan say, but do you condemn Hamas? Just kidding. He's been saying that over and over and over again, right? Except for now. In this recent discussion, Piers Morgan has actually taken the other side. Now, this is different. So I feel like after the attack on the tent community in Rafah, even Piers Morgan is having a difficult time justifying what Israel is doing. Let's get started with this clip. It is called "You're Going to Kill Civilians, Israel Rafah Debate" with Piers Morgan and this crazy woman on the right. Let's get into it.
Warfare, move forward. 2005, Israel leaves the Gaza Strip. 2009, another peace deal offered by Ehud Olmert, going even further than Ehud Barak, and them saying no again. So my conclusion is, and the conclusion of a lot of people in this country who are fatigued by this attempt that they are saying that they want a state, is that the crux of the problem is not that there isn't a Palestinian state. The crux of the problem is that there's a Jewish state that they have never ideologically accepted exists. And in their educational system, he talks that they want peace. Why are they paying terrorist pensions? He talks that they want peace. Why is in the educational system talk about the right to return and the destruction of the state of Israel? If that's what they want, why are they telling the people exactly the opposite?
Okay. So she's talking about the fact that the Palestinian people have been offered, the two-state solution, or been offered a state before. I've spoken to Max Blumenthal about that on the show before, and Max has explained they were not really offered their own state. The other thing I want to mention too, which she conveniently leaves out, and a lot of people do who make this talking point, is that Palestinian people were never offered the right to return. And why is it that they should not be allowed to return? That would be like, imagine if you grew up in North Carolina and let's say you were pushed out because of gentrification. Let's use a better example. You grew up in New York, but let's say in Brooklyn, but you were pushed out because of gentrification. Let's use that as an example, right? So you move further south where it was cheaper. Say you move to South Carolina. Then you decide one day, you know what? I've had good years here. I've saved up my money, and I'm going to move back to New York. Imagine if you show up and at the state line, they tell you you're not allowed to come back here. It just really does not make any sense. It's ridiculous to tell people they don't have the right to return. Now, that is a mild example, but still, I say that to make a point. That is ridiculous.
Let me bring in Wajah Ali. You've been waiting very patiently. I mean, there's a question in that, which I think is a very valid one, which I also asked the ambassador. He seems to think that you can have post-war a situation where Hamas still form part of a government, governing in Gaza, for example. I just don't think Israel's ever going to wear that, and I completely understand why they would feel that way, and I'd agree with them. Do you think it's possible to have Hamas as forming any part of a government in Gaza after this?
The year is 2024. Israel has occupied Palestinians in East Jerusalem, in West Bank, and in Gaza for nearly 60 years. In the West Bank, there is no Hamas. Hamas does not control it. What is Israel's excuse? Over 500 people have died. No one's talking about that right now because of the genocide in Gaza. They have expanded settlements. Palestinians live under apartheid law. You know this. In Gaza, over the past 7 months, Piers, over 36,000 people have died. You and I have seen it. You and I have been outraged by it. You and I have seen the burned bodies in Rafah. Over 80,000 people have been injured. Over 1.5 million people have been displaced. As long as there is an occupation, even if you get rid of Hamas, and as we have seen in the past 7-8 months, Hamas will not be destroyed. They have been weakened, but Israel has already failed in its war because, as we have seen, Hamas will not be destroyed. Even if Hamas gets destroyed, something else will pop up. I'll give you an example. Early 80s.
Pause. This is a very good point that he mentions here. And I think this is why it's important that we continue to say to end the occupation and end the oppression. That is the reality of the situation. As long as these people are occupied, as long as they don't have freedom of movement, okay, say that Israel does take out Hamas, another group would emerge because the people are occupied. So the overall solution in the end is to end the occupation and to end the oppression. Palestinians need to be treated as equal people. Like this, I can't even believe I need to say this in 2024. Why do you even need the two-state solution? I told you it's dead in the water. We told you this. We found this out years ago. I found this out 2 years ago when the Palestinian Network explained to me why this would not work this day and time. But we push for the fact that there should be a one-state solution and to treat everybody as equals under that one state. And I don't understand why it's difficult for some people to even understand that at this point in time, knowing what people have gone through in our own country here in the United States. We had Jim Crow laws in the South. So it drives me crazy that people are like, no, they can't all live in one state. They did before. Do people understand this? At one point, they all lived together. It was Zionism that came in. With the supremacy and this ideology that no, only we can be here. And I said this before. I never saw Germany try to step up and give any land. I never saw Germany. That's where the Holocaust taking place in Germany and in Poland. I never saw them step up to try to give a safe homeland place for the Jewish people. Why? Why is that? Think about these things. Think about it, folks. It's almost as if the Palestinian people are being punished for something that they didn't do.
Lebanon. They went to Lebanon. Israel went to Lebanon, laid devastation. What happened? PLO got weakened. What rose in its place, Piers? You remember, Hezbollah, who has been supporting Hamas, specifically as a counter to Arab nationalism. Israeli government, who has been supporting and funding Hamas? Benjamin Netanyahu. So who here the ICC has said has committed war crimes? Netanyahu and the leaders of Hamas. The reality is, unfortunately, as much as all of us hate Hamas, and we do, it has committed terrorism against Israel. Right now, the problem is the occupying power, occupying Palestinians. And I will say this, Israel should call out Hamas's bluff. Hamas said, if Israel accepts two states, we will lay down our arms. All right, call Hamas's bluff. Last month, Hamas said, we accept Qatar and Egypt's peace plan. Antony Blinken said it was very, very generous. Who torpedoed it? Netanyahu. We just saw on Friday, President Biden, who has been weakened, humiliated, and mocked and ridiculed by his greatest ally, more like an enemy, Netanyahu. The next day, Saturday, Piers, who rejected Israel's own peace plan? Netanyahu. So I'm telling you, as long as Israel occupies Palestinians and Israel chooses to occupy Palestinians, and Netanyahu and the government say no two states, there will always be a resistance. That's the reality we have to deal with, unfortunately.
Okay.
He is 100% correct. And I couldn't have said it better myself. That's the reality, folks. You have to free these people. You cannot continue to occupy these people. You have to free them. Let's go on.
Bring Fleur back in here. I mean, I don't think Hamas should form part of any government after this. I think they abrogated their right to govern anything, frankly, but what happened on October the 7th. But I also think that Israel's current government is full of people who are, I would label, extremists, whether it's Smotrich or Ben-Gvir, or even increasingly Netanyahu himself, who, let's not forget, is facing corruption charges the moment this war's over. All the polling says that Israelis support the war on Hamas, but don't want him to continue as prime minister at the end of it. There's no motivation for him to end this war. In fact, the motivation is quite the opposite. And it's quite clear from the rhetoric of people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir that they speak in virtual genocidal terms themselves. So yeah, I'm all in favor of Hamas being removed completely from any power. But I don't understand why any sensible person on the Israeli side would see that it would be good for anything going forward, particularly a two-state solution, to have people like Netanyahu, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir anywhere near a government. What do you say to that?
But they don't want a two-state solution. See, that's the thing. That's why they continue to say that they were offered a two-state solution. They don't want a two-state solution. Netanyahu's made it clear they want the land. They want the land in Gaza. They want the land in the West Bank. They want the Palestinian people gone. Either that means that they push them into other countries, or they do what they're doing now, which is killing those people. They want the land. Let's not forget Israel is also, they're bombing Lebanon right now. They got some stuff going on there too as well as Syria. So that's the thing, Piers. They don't want a two-state solution. They want the people gone.
Well, the thing is, Piers, we're a democracy. And democracies, we have elections. Just because Hamas had an election and the PA haven't had an election in, 19 years? Hamas haven't had an election in 17 years? We have elections. The people speak and they elect the leaders that they want. But it's very, very interesting how everybody's putting the blame on Netanyahu and this government when previous governments, some on the left, also were rejected. Also, the Palestinian leadership rejected statehood. What was the excuse then? Why don't we ask ourselves, what is the fundamental reason why Yasser Arafat and Mahmoud Abbas have said no to very generous peace deals? What is the reason why Hamas have rejected now a ceasefire deal 5 times?
Generous according to who? It's generous according to what Israel thinks is generous. We can't forget the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, which also at that point in time, that is one agreement that Israel rejected. So we can't sit here and pretend like it's just been Hamas that has not been accepting these agreements. Who accepted the ceasefire deal in exchange of the hostages just recently? Hamas did. Who rejected it? Israel did, despite what Joe Biden tried to tell you and try to pretend like this was Israel's proposal. It was his proposal and Israel rejected it. So she doesn't want to mention that, right?
Blinken did say that the deals were very generous, but it was Hamas who rejected it. And then they magically accepted a deal that we didn't even offer. And again, trying to manipulate the media. And so again, the question is not this government. It's very easy to blame this government right now. They're an easy target. What was the problem with the Ehud Barak government? What was the problem with the Ehud Olmert government? What was the problem with the Rabin government?
Well, they didn't kill nearly 40,000 Palestinians in 8 months.
First of all, please, Piers.
So this is where Piers comes in. So Piers is taking a different side on this time around. Like, I think the attack, I saw his tweet. So I think the attack that happened at the Rafah camp really kind of set him off a little bit, because I did see some things that he said on Twitter, like, what the heck is, what are you guys doing? That kind of thing, right? But the thing that I want to point out really quickly, let's say she is correct. Let's say she is right that they rejected all these different, proposals for their own state or whatever. Okay, first of all, if I take land from you and I kick you out your house, I don't get to tell you what you should be offered. Let me say this again. If I take land from you and I kick you from your home, I do not get to tell you what you should be offered and what you should take. So there's that. If anything, the Palestinian people should be able to make the demands and get what they are owed. Fact. And then 3, just because, let's say they did not accept those proposals, so that gives you the right to steal their homes in the West Bank. That gives you the right to make them refugees. That gives you the right to shoot them, to beat them, to kill them, to take their children as prisoners. That gives you the right to treat them in such a way. Nobody wants to answer for that.
We know that the numbers have gone up and down like yo-yos. Even the UN said last week that it wasn't already 35, how many do you think have been killed? That it was 20. All I can say to you is,
how many do you think have been killed?
We have, I would say, potentially around 20,000, because that's what the UN
you have
said,
no idea.
22,000.
You have no idea.
Let's not start with this line of questioning.
Actually, I'm going to start with this line of questioning.
I don't think Churchill knew in the middle of the Second World War how many Germans he'd killed. And so this is a farcical question. What I can tell you is
you just gave me a number, but you've no idea why you've got that number.
That's what the UN says. The UN says, according to the so-called Gaza Health Ministry, let's take their number. Let's take the number, the mistaken, corrected number of the Gaza so-called Health Ministry, all terrorists underground, hiding like cowards. But let's say now they're saying 22,000. We know.
Pause. So once again, this is another example that shows you that they believe that Hamas is underground, that they believe they're in the tunnels. So again, if you know all that, and if that is your target, why are you not going into the tunnels? Why are you killing all the civilians? When the US government went after bin Laden, they found him underground, right? Didn't they go directly to him? So let me ask that question again. Okay. See, they reveal their self. Sometimes if you let people talk enough, they'll expose themselves. I love that. I just love that. So they expose themselves when they tell you that they know they're underground. So why are you attacking buildings above ground if you know they're underground? They just bombed the UN school today, killing more kids. They just did that. Israel just did that.
Killed 14,000 terrorists.
No, you don't.
Now you tell me.
No, you don't.
Yes, we do.
No, you
yes,
don't.
we do. So you tell me.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not having that. I pressed the Israeli.
We know how many brigades.
Hang on.
We know how many brigades we've gotten rid of. We know how many brigades
Hang on. I'm going to respond to you. I did put this.
We know how many brigades.
I put this to an Israeli government spokesman. I asked him, how many Hamas have you killed? And he gave me this figure. And I said, how many civilians have you killed? And he had no idea. I said, well, then how can you be so precise of how many terrorists you've killed? You can't. If you've got no idea how many civilians you've killed, why should I believe a word about the numbers of Hamas?
Because we know how many brigades they have, because we have that intelligence. We know how many brigades.
So just to be clear.
So if they have the intelligence to know how many members of Hamas that they have killed, that same intelligence can't tell them how many civilians they've killed. Do you see how the lies just openly lies? So Piers Morgan here, I was proud of Piers in this moment. Now we're going to have to, I'm hold my breath because we don't know that he's going to stick with this. But I was proud of Piers in this moment because he really pushed back on her about the numbers and something else later on that you'll see as well.
Just to be clear, you know exactly how many terrorists he's killed, but you have no idea how many civilians.
We estimate, absolutely. We estimate that there's about 14,000 terrorists, which we've gotten rid of. We know how many are left. There's 4 brigades, and that's why we're in Rafah.
And how many civilians have you killed?
The UN, again, Piers, in the middle of the Second World War, I don't think you could
have
pushed
Churchill. You're doing it as well.
Ask him.
Sorry, Fleur.
What am I doing?
You're doing the same thing the government spokesman did. You know exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but you've no idea how many civilians.
We don't know exactly.
How convenient.
We don't know exactly.
How convenient that Israel knows exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but you've no idea how many innocent women and children.
Do you believe the UN numbers?
Huh?
Do you believe the UN numbers?
I just find it staggering that you'll all come on and say to me, we know we've killed 14,126 Hamas, but we've no idea how many civilians.
Because we know what the army that we're dealing with is. We know what the terrorist army
No, I'm sorry, it's nonsense to say you can count one and not the other.
Absolutely not. It's nonsense to even ask the question. I don't know who in the middle of a war starts counting here.
You're counting
the people that they've killed.
You're counting.
No, we know how many are left.
So she exposes herself, right? She says that basically in the middle of a war, no one is counting. No one's doing this counting in the middle of a war. But she just told you that they're counting. They're counting how many members of Hamas that they've supposedly killed, right? She said they have the intelligence to do that. So what is she talking about? They're actively doing that.
Sorry, you're counting, but you're only counting one side.
Piers, you seem to be a little obsessed with this.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with how many civilians are being killed.
All right, let's say we take the so-called Gaza Health Ministry's numbers, the corrected version. Do you remember what that is now?
That was the number of people they could actually put a name to, right?
The corrected
they could put a name to.
So we went.
And you think that's the total number of civilians killed?
The last time I was on your show, you had Barghouti saying that there was 40, 50, 60,000 dead. Let's just add numbers on because why not? Everybody will believe you anyway. And then we had the corrected version of the numbers, which went down to about 24,000.
They were the names of people. They were the ones they could put a name to. They don't know how many people are lying in rubble still. They have no idea. Yeah. People have been killed.
We know how many.
People have been killed in gigantic numbers.
So we went.
And you think that's the total number of civilians killed?
The last time I was on your show, you had Barghouti saying that there was 40, 50.
That was weird. It looked like they had cut something there. That wasn't me, by the way. It looked like they had cut something there. I don't know.
60,000 dead. Let's just add numbers on because why not? Everybody will believe you anyway. And then we had the corrected version of the numbers, which went down to about 24,000.
They were the names of people. They were the ones they could put a name to. They don't know how many people are lying in rubble still. They have no idea. People have been killed.
We know how many.
People have been killed in gigantic numbers week in, week out. You know that, and I know that. I've interviewed doctors. I've interviewed doctors in hospitals saying 500 people have been brought in every single day. But what staggers me, Fleur, what staggers me is that
And nurses, there's been nurses interviewed, even on mainstream media, American nurses as well, Doctors Without Borders, talking about the numbers of the people that are coming in.
You, like the government spokesman I interviewed, you are certain you know exactly how many terrorists you're killing, but
Absolutely.
you've no idea how many civilians. Let me bring you Wajah.
We know how big the army. We know how big. Let me finish.
I'm going to come to Wajah. I've given you a chance to respond.
When Al-Shifa
can't just keep talking.
When Al-Shifa Hospital was bombed by the Palestinians,
we're not going back again to that.
They said there were 500 dead. The next day, when it turned out to be a Hamas rocket, there were 26 dead.
I know.
Think about that every time you believe the numbers.
Let me come to Wajah. This is my problem.
Okay, let's fast forward to the second piece because it's brutal. It's brutal. So now we get to the part here about the psychopath part of the debate. This is a doozy. Hold on to your seats for this one.
So Israel bombs Rafah and kills kids? So Israel bombs World Central Kitchen staff?
Terrorists.
I've given you a chance to respond.
When Al-Shifa Hospital was bombed by the Palestinians,
we're not going back again to that.
They said there were 500 dead.
I don't know what just happened there, but let me go back again. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it was right here. Okay, sorry.
Presents the general psychopathy of the Israeli government, where they come on television and they think the rest of the world actually is like them, that they don't see Palestinians as humans, and they say these talking points. And Piers, sometimes when you invite me to debate, I sit here and go, I don't have to say a word, because they're undermining themselves and their own cause in front of the global stage right now. I mean, the fact that she knows, but like somehow magically they're all terrorists, but when you ask them repeatedly, well, how can you not know how many civilians there are? And they say, well, we don't know. What civilians? And then she goes to World War II, compares Palestinian moms and children to Germans, to Nazis. Okay, fine. Go for it.
You're talking about mosques, and you're talking about churches, and you're talking about schools, and you fail to mention that that's exactly where Hamas hide. Not just that, they build mosques on top of tunnels, on top of terrorist installations. You want to ignore the fact that Hamas are cynically using their own people. They use their people as a defense strategy.
I thought they were in the tunnels, though. So I thought you said they were hiding underground. So they hiding underground, but they also in the schools and all that kind of stuff. And you haven't really killed. And let me tell you, you've bombed all the hospitals, the universities, the mosque, etc. And you still haven't weeded out Hamas. If they're hiding behind all the people, how come they're still there? Human shields. Yeah, right here.
They're using our hostages.
So Israel bombs Rafah and kills kids? Israel bombs World Central Kitchen staff?
Israel bombed 2 terrorists. A kilometer away, there was a fire that was made by munitions that were in a place that they shouldn't have been. And
actually, you don't know all that. You don't know that. That's not been established as fact.
See how she's just making up stories? Nobody has reported that anywhere. That has not been a proven fact. But you see how she's just making up this story? She also goes on to talk about the baby in the oven. She brings that up again, too. You'll see when that has actually been debunked. So now she's just creating stories. All of a sudden, she knows something that no one else knows. How could that be? Was she on the ground? She knows all this. She knows the number of people, the number of Hamas soldiers that have been killed, but she does not know how many civilians have been killed. If you let them talk, they expose themselves. Listen.
Sorry, that's not sorry.
But all I know is
again to correct you, Fleur. That has not.
You don't know what happened either.
No, nor do you. So you accept you don't.
We are at the moment
investigating. Sorry, you just accepted you don't.
We know that it was a kilometer away from where
you just said you didn't know what happened either. In other words, nor do you.
No, we are doing an investigation.
Right, it's not concluded. So how can you say these things are facts?
And then
the only fact. If I may finish, Fleur, if I may finish, the only fact is that 45 innocent people in the refugee camps were killed at the same time as apparently 2 Hamas terrorists. I don't call that a very good percentage, do you?
No, but it wasn't a strategy, and it is not what.
But when
we
you
aim
bomb
to
a
do.
refugee
Whereas
camp,
Hamas
that
on
is
the
a
October
strategy.
7th,
When you bomb a refugee
no,
camp, it is a
we
strategy.
did not bomb a refugee camp. We bombed two
Who are in a
terrorist
refugee camp.
zone. They were a kilometer away from the humanitarian
They were
zone.
in a refugee camp.
They were
Yep.
in a kilometer away from the humanitarian
In
zone.
a refugee camp.
Where we moved people in order to.
See, she doesn't want to. Doesn't want to admit that they were in a refugee camp because she already got her talking points. They already told her before she came on this damn show. Don't admit that they were in the refugee camp. And Israel will just continue to say that it was an accident. Every time they kill civilians, oh, it was an accident. That was a mistake. We didn't mean for that to happen. They'll just continue to say that and do whatever they want. Israel is incredibly dangerous to the entire world, not just the Middle East. You guys got to pay attention to this. Look at what just happened to Breonna Joy Gray. We talked about this earlier. We'll talk about it more extensively tomorrow night. Look at what just happened to Breonna Joy Gray. How all these Zionists came after her, calling her racial slurs and all this stuff on Twitter. Who gets fired? She gets fired. Incredibly dangerous to the rest of the world.
You moved them there and then you killed them.
Hamas,
Yep.
Hamas keeps them in harm's way. When babies were baked in ovens on October 7th, that was a strategy. When Israel tries to weed.
So she's still spreading that lie, which has been debunked multiple times. Nobody saw that. Joe Biden lied about that, then had to come back and retract the lie. Nobody saw that happen. So just lies, lies, lies.
Out the terrorists, and there are unfortunately casualties. It's not a strategy. That is not what we aim to do.
Those
But
casualties
Hamas
are
knows
beheaded
very
babies in
well
Rafah.
That really.
Yes,
That bomb
really.
dropped
I've
in
seen
Rafah tent,
I
it
saw a
burned
beheaded
bodies
baby
and
that
babies
night.
were
It was
beheaded.
horrific.
Which I actually saw as well. I saw it on social media. Obviously, I cannot show that on here, but I think to Pierce's point, there was actual evidence that there was a beheaded baby in Gaza, Palestinian beheaded baby in Gaza. There was actual evidence to show that to people. Nobody till this day has seen that there are beheaded babies in Israel because, again, no one saw that. That was a lie. Even mainstream media had to come back and retract it.
That's what happened in Rafah. And you know why they went to Rafah, Piers?
So, hang on,
Can we
you're
connect the- real quick,
Fleur,
can we
hang
connect
on,
the dots?
I don't
hang on.
accept it.
Fleur, just to
I
be
would need
clear,
some
are you
proof.
denying that there were any video footage of a baby beheaded?
I have not seen anything.
Really?
And I know that the Israeli army would never do anything like that.
No, sorry, the baby's head was blown off.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Listen, when
It's
there's a
killed
bomb.
36,000 Palestinians.
Oh, well, that's what you say. Apparently, you know the numbers better than the UN and
The fire
the
that
army
raged through
and
that
everyone
refugee
else
camp did that damage
was
to that
tragic.
baby.
was absolutely, and it was
But
tragic.
it's going to happen again and
unfortunately-
again if you bomb people in a
Yes.
refugee camp.
Well, we weren't aiming to bomb people in a
But
refugee
you
camp.
are
We were
going to
aiming
kill them
to
if you keep
eliminate
dropping
two
bombs
terrorists with
in a
blood
refugee
on their
camp, aren't
hands.
you? You're going to
That's
kill
why
civilians.
We took almost 1 million people and put them in a humanitarian
And how many
zone.
have you left?
That's why we did.
How many have you left?
Which army in the world is actually warning ahead of time where we're going to be attacking in order to put people out of harm's way that its own authority, its own government puts in harm's way? Nobody's doing that. War is
Where are they
ugly.
going to run
War
to?
is
Over a
horrible.
I'm sorry, I have to
War
say
is horrible.
something. I
Where
have to
would
say
they
something.
run to?
Where
Well, maybe
are
the
they going
brethren,
to run to
maybe
when?
Egypt.
Just let me finish.
Maybe somebody should demand Egypt to help out
I've
here.
listened to you. Just give me.
It is not Egypt's responsibility. And you see what she's trying to do now? She's trying to push them onto another country, which is exactly what Israel wants. They don't want the Palestinian people to stay there. They want one of the other countries to open up their borders and let them come in so that Israel can make it so that they can't come back. That's exactly what they want to happen. She knows that. She knows that. These people are paid. They're trained liars. Trained liars.
Give me 10 seconds. The Israeli government has bombed Gaza. There's over 1.5 million people displaced. They moved to Rafah for safety. What did Israel do? Cross Biden's red line, the greatest ally, United States, and bombed Rafah. These people, as Piers were saying, were in a safe space. They were in a safe zone, in a refugee camp, and now we have charred bodies and beheaded babies, and Benjamin Netanyahu says, I don't care. No ceasefire. I'm going to continue bombing Rafah. And now you have openly admitted they should go to Egypt. Now, if you want to send them to Egypt, which I know
said
you do
Egypt
because you
could
just said it,
help out.
that is
Look
ethnic
what happened in
cleansing.
the Ukrainian
That
war.
is
No,
ethnic
it's
cleansing.
not.
And that
No, it's not.
is a genocide.
No, why is
that
it
would be a
ethnic
genocide.
cleansing? That's so you're saying that at the moment
Because
there's
you're
no
bombing
genocide.
them
Well,
out.
At least that.
Yep.
Okay. All I can say to you is this: Ukraine had a war, and all of the neighboring countries took them in temporarily in order to help them out in a situation where there is bombing going on. Now, Egypt.
Ukraine, you cannot make the comparison with Ukraine because the reality is Ukraine, those people can still return. You won't even let Palestinian people return right now. They don't even have the right to return right now. When you have your crazy psychotic leaders running around on video saying you don't want any of them to exist. By the way, there was just a nationalist march, an Israeli nationalist march in Israel for them calling for the extermination of all Palestinian people. They don't want them there. You know what was sad about that march? Children. There were children in that march saying those things. So the reality is she's trying to make that comparison. You can't make that comparison. Ukrainians are welcomed in the United States, by the way. Not only were they welcomed in the United States, you had HBC schools, historically Black universities that were willing to give, some of them willing to give them free tuition, to give Ukrainians free tuition to attend. Hampton University was one of them. I covered that story over a year ago. So send them where? But it is not Egypt's responsibility to take care of the problems that have been created by Israel and the United States government. It's not. This is how people become refugees in the first damn place. It's such a sick, it is disgusting, it is gross. You ever think in 2024, you would see such blatant lies and racism and just disgusting. It's disgusting. Oz the Boomer says lies real PR here. Just so many lies and lie after lie after lie after lie. And everything that they've tried is not working. Because the world sees you for what you really are and what you have done to these people. I don't know what is going to happen, but we are getting closer to November. But I know one thing, I will never forget this. And I'm sure many of you won't either. I will never forget this. What has happened to these people, the things that I've heard, I will never forget it. Some of you that were alive during the civil rights movement, you probably feel the same way. You probably never forget the things that you heard during the civil rights movement. But I'll never forget this. This is insane. This is crazy. And the fact that our country is willing to bend over backwards. They're more willing to peep this, fam. Our politicians are more willing to do more for Israel than they are to do for you. When we need help, they tell us there's a process that we have to go through. There's a legislative process. This is how things work in DC. But when Israel needs help, they're willing to drop whatever they have to do and to help them. Now, however you feel about this conflict, it is very obvious that the American people, we're always put last. Oh, no, it doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat. They're willing to bend over backwards to help the oligarchy first, corporate interests first. Remember, they don't pass legislation that doesn't have some type of corporate interest. That's how that works. They have more loyalty to Israel than they do to us. Ain't that something? Don't it make you feel some type of way? I still believe that a revolution is coming in this country. I don't know if it'll be during my lifetime, during your lifetime. I don't know. But the way things are looking, The story that I told you about the landlords, the stories that we're hearing about Israel, the stories that I've told you about the wealth inequality in this country, the economic woes. The West is not doing too well. And it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before people just say, that is it. Enough is enough. And Hollywood, no. Why do you think they got this movie? They just came out with the movie called Civil War. Why do you think they're making these movies? Why do you think they're making these movies? They know. They know people are pissed. I just think about all the workers. And I just think about how we're constantly being exploited and used by the billionaire class. I just think about how people are tired of working 2 jobs. Some have done this whole life. And then I see all this money going. This is the first time I've heard people who really usually don't pay attention to politics. Even they have said things to me on the down low off of this channel about, why are we sending all this money to Ukraine? Why are we sending all this money to Israel? So we got people in this country that can't afford housing. I just showed you the housing report. All this money going out the door. And I really do believe that when we finally hit that collapse, because we ain't there yet, we almost, when we finally hit that collapse, I believe that is when the revolution will come. And I don't believe that shit's going to be televised. CNN might have like one reporter out on the street trying to get it, but I'm pretty sure them cameras and the lights going to go out real quick. And it's only a matter of time. So people say, oh, we're not there yet. No, we're not there yet, but we're inching there. Look at what they just did to Bree. I think we all know why Bree got fired. They don't have to tell you in the letter why she got fired. I think we all know. Because she was exposing Israel on corporate media, rising as corporate media. Why did Katie Halper get fired? Because she was exposing apartheid Israel. Why did Kim Iverson, why they let go of her? Because they didn't want Kim Iverson to interview Dr. Fauci. Sounds like to me, some people are owed some apologies, right? Didn't Congress just question Fauci? With some of the same questions I'm sure that Kim would have asked him if she would have been given the opportunity. Sounds like to me there may be some apologies owed to Kim and to Katie and to Bree. But that show was done. That show was done, son.